Uh, yes, Dr. Evans.
Quick
Dr.
question.
Kelly.
If
Yes, ma'am.
I'm not the person speaking, it's okay for me to cut off my video, or do I have to sit here for the whole 90 minutes?
No, it's that's fine.
Okay. I mean, I'll be here, but I may not
Yes,
be
ma'am.
on camera. Thank you.
That's fine. Thank you. Okay, we are live. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Thank you for joining us today for a very important and timely discussion. Um, this discussion, inshallah, today will be about the injustices, fighting the injustices that face African Americans in the US. We have an esteemed panel, and what we would like to do is get started by having our resident Imam, Imam Wazir Ali, here in Houston, Texas, start us off with a dua, a prayer.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. That is, we seek refuge with Allah from Satan, the rejected, with Allah's name, the merciful benefactor, the merciful redeemer. All praise is due to Allah, the Garnivolver, cherisher, sustainer, nurturer of all the systems of knowledge, the merciful benefactor, the merciful redeemer, the master of the day of judgment. You alone do we worship, in your aid we seek. Guide us to the upright path, the path of those whom you have bestowed your favor, whose portion is not wrath, and who go not astray. Ameen. We want to thank everyone for joining us this afternoon for this very important discussion. And I want to begin by quoting a quote from Imam Warathuddin Muhammad in the lecture in the lecture series given, actually called Life, the Final Battlefield. And this was printed in the Muslim Journal from March 26, 2008 to April 4th, 2008. And you can find this on New Africa Radio, and you can also find it in the book, Imam Muhammad's book, published by the Mosquaires, called Life, the Final Battlefield. Imam Muhammad said, whenever life is valued, life is on the up and up. To lose a sense of human value is a loss of life's most potent motivation, a belief that all humans are of the same human essence, served to keep the slaves up in spirit. Nations survive and nations prosper upon the pride in achievement. However, eventually that pride falls. Human nature of its own constitution holds life up. Life rewards those who value it and punishes those who mistreat it. For the global community, the war is not on the other side of the ocean. The war and the final battle occur wherever people are. In this time of the global community, all of us are brought together in spirit, and the cultures of the various peoples in this planet Earth are mixing. I want us to keep that in mind, that guidance that Imam Warathuddin Muhammad, rahimahullah alayh, may Allah have mercy upon him and give him the highest station in the paradise. As we go through our discussion today, keep those guiding principles in mind. Emphasis placed on wherever human life is valued, life is on the up and up. And to lose a sense of human value is a loss of life's most potent motivation. Peace. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Imam Abdullah, are you? So alhamdulillah, let's begin to move into our conversation, inshallah. And our first speaker is Imam Rashad Abdul Rahman. He is an associate imam at the Atlanta Masjid of Al-Islam. He is one of the few who have been blessed to be directly mentored and taught by our leader, our Imam Warathadi Muhammad, Rahim al-Alayh. May Allah have mercy upon him. And Imam Rashad will be speaking on education and religion of the four birds. If you notice that our topic included the four birds, Imam Rashad will be speaking on education and Imam Rashad, please unmute yourself and begin your presentation.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lah. Wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluhu sallallahu alayhi wa sallam wa ba'd. With God's name, the merciful benefactor, the merciful redeemer, we witness that there is nothing that deserves to be worshipped except for Allah, who is one alone without associates or partners in his rule over the heavens and the earth. And we send the salutation and prayers and peace upon his generous and noble servant Muhammad, and what follows in that tradition of saluting to him. I want to first begin with extending to everyone the greeting of peace, Assalamu alaikum. And I want to also just extend expression of gratitude to Masjid WD Muhammad and the organizers of this panel for allowing us to have this opportunity to share in regards to these various areas of concern: religion, education, culture, business, government. And as I understand it, and please, Abdullah, correct me if I'm wrong, we want to look at, the intention is for us to look at practical steps.
Yes.
Practical steps. What are we doing practically to navigate these times? We know that there's a lot of discussion going around in regards to how we should see and how we should operate in this time. And for us as religious people, we know, particularly as Muslims, this may not be the case for other religious communities. We don't have a secular idea, a secular concept. Allah tells us in the Quran very plainly, He is the Lord of the heavens and the earth. He is Allah in the heavens. He is Allah in the earth, etc. A lot of language in this regard. So for Muslims, there is no separation of the religious life from the other aspects of life. All other aspects of life are like branches to the tree, to one tree. So the human life is the religious life, and the religious life is expressed through all of these various means or ways. Pardon me. And because of that, we look to our holy book, the Quran, for guidance for for all circumstances that we encounter. And I think that I thought about the question, and I thought about the way of approach, and it's interesting from what I can see from the perspective of religion and education. What we should be doing practically today is really no different than what we should have been doing before today. For some reason, and I'm cautious about oversimplifying analogies, but I keep thinking about Noah. Ever since I found out about not perhaps before this panel, just thinking about people requesting an answer or requesting help for their spirit. Noah was told of the flood was by God, and he warned his people, and the majority of them, as we know, went on to live life as they were living it before. And as he was building the boat or the ark, to them he looked strange. And in the Quran, it says some of them even mocked him. But what was he doing that for? For the flood that was coming. And I think that a lot of our imams and teachers in religion, they have been emphasizing a lot over the years now, the basic values or the basic principles of Muslim life. We have to study our Quran. We have to get closer to Allah. We have to just strengthen ourselves as believers in God, knowing that times like this do arise. And if we're not prepared spiritually, and if we're not prepared mentally, the tempestuous winds and the waters of these times can really shake our faith. So what I think, I'm trying to respect time, and I want to move straight to the point. You know, I think where we should be is to understand that Islam is a religion that is progressed upon knowledge. Islamic knowledge is the foundation of our life, beginning with the Quran, beginning with the tradition of our prophet, as well as the learned teachers and scholars of the religion. That's what really gives form, and that's what really gives spirit to our life as Muslims, always. I recall Imam Muhammad saying on several occasions, America can come and go, it can rise and fall, but if we are in this particular mode, we will live and outlast everyone else. While everything else fades away, we will remain. And I think that that's where we should be. If we haven't been there, we should get there. And if we have been there, we should remain there. This is a time, you know, I've mentioned this before here locally in Atlanta. The world has been going through major shifts. This is something that perhaps hits home as African Americans. But if we think about the major changes that have happened within the past decade, even for just the way women are treated, let alone with communication, the rise of great nations, not only China, China is perhaps the most pronounced of them, but multiple nations arising to share the stage of world leadership. We can, and just observing human society or being a student of human society, we can see that within the past 100 years, and let alone within the past 50 years, major changes have happened. Major shifts have occurred for the human family. The human landscape is different, and we're there today. And this time requires us more than ever to be in touch with sacred scripture, to be in touch with the message of scripture, and be in touch with Muslim life. So the life that we point to all of the time in our khutbahs or in our classes of really taking this religion, holding firm to it, that message is just true now as much as it ever has been. But I think that we should keep this one point in mind, and I'll say this to kind of conclude my statements here. When we say Islamic knowledge, particularly, when I say particularly, I'm not just speaking as a Muslim in general. I'm speaking specifically now as a member and a student of the community of Imam W.D. Muhammad, and with the awareness of what has been given to us over these years or decades. We were told in the first experience America was going to fall. Now, we may have understood it in a particular type of way that was not to be, that was not correct. Imam Muhammad came later and told us and advanced our understanding of the end of the world, meaning the end of the unjust world, the end of the world of unrighteousness, etc. And one of the things that we have to understand, and I'll stick with the Noah analogy. Noah was not just to build the ark. The ark in this instance is our religious life, our religious teachings, our religious community. He was being preserved to populate the new world. So those of us who have been saved from this respective experience that I'm speaking of, our experience here in America as African American Muslims, we have to see that we have not been given this religion to just, you know how to worship and go to heaven. Allah has actually selected us and preserved us for the new world. And why am I putting it in this way? As the world shifts, as these shifts continue, I believe more shifts will come about, to be honest with you. This world in general, and America in particular, is in dire need of leadership. America is in dire need of leadership. And America needs persons who are inspired by precious values, inspired by high ideals, and moved by faith in God, faith in the common person, faith in the common good. We need people of august character and thinking, to help shoulder the responsibility for the future of America. So we should be looking at the need for Islam, for religion and religious education in particular, to give us that. This is the spirit and this is the thought process that we should be seeking to inculcate in our young people, to say to them that it's not enough to just want to see change. The Muslim position is that we have to be in the vanguard of real change. And
Right.
And I'm going to say this, what we see right now, to me, is only a beginning, or it has the possibility to be a beginning. It may not be anything at all, like the Arab Spring several years ago. You know, a lot of those movements didn't amount to much. But we should impress upon our young people that we need thinkers. We need people who are creative. We need persons of action. So what we're doing here locally, I mentioned this to several of you all who are on the panel with me, with us here today. You know, we have started a program, an Islamic studies program that we are rolling out nationally, with the aim of preparing young men and women to, number one, have a better understanding of this religion as given to us by our imam, and also qualify them for leadership of our community institutions, not just masjids, but for businesses, our schools, etc. And my ultimate aim with this institute is really to produce just that, teachers of the religion, and also da'is, people who can call to the religion, and also persons who can assume greater responsibility over our education as a community. We're working on several publications to also spread this kind of understanding that we have, that we feel is unique and can be of great benefit to America. But just to wrap it up, I just really think that the best strategy from the religious perspective, the practical strategy, is to really just embrace our religion more. Read the Quran every day, study, reflect upon it, study the Prophet's life, study his traditions, send more salawat upon the Prophet, increase in your dua, stay in the mode similar to the month of Ramadan. That's what I would suggest we can do practically for our own heart's sake, for our own internal fortitude. And if we do that, and as we engage in these other areas that we will discuss, we will have the proper orientation to be a real light in those other areas, inshallah.
Thank you, Imam Rashad. Thank you so much. We really appreciate your comments. We have a full panel. So we're going to go to Dr. Carolyn Shabazz, Councilwoman, District D. So Dr. Shabazz, last Tuesday, I was with you marching with the family of George Floyd. I was actually right behind you. I saw you there holding the banner, walking arm to arm with his family. And I know that these marches and the protests aren't just for George Floyd. They've been highlighted more. The injustice has been highlighted more because of the killing of Ahmaud Arbery. Also, the woman caught on camera threatening an African-American male that she was going to call the police and tell them that an African-American was attacking her. Playing further on the psychology and the continued lynch mobbing and this criminalization of the African-American figure. So we were there marching. There were thousands of people there, thousands of people that are fed up, thousands of people that are demanding justice. But we know that marching alone isn't enough. So what we'd like to hear from you, Dr. Carolyn, Councilwoman, is when it comes to our involvement in government, can you highlight for us and talk to us about the importance of our participation in local elections, national elections, and some tangible things that we can do in the short term and the long term to participate? Let's say I'm one of those young people that were out there marching, who's fed up, and I'm looking for direction. What will you offer? What will you say to them?
Thank you so very much, and good afternoon to all of the participants. And this has been a long, well, I'll say a couple of months with the COVID, and now this tragedy with our native Houstonian George Floyd, and of course all of the others, Breonna Taylor, and so many others whose names we need to call, who have been tragically murdered by law enforcement. And so certainly what we are doing, and when I say we, actually my colleagues, some of the African American council members had already engaged with an initial meeting with the police department to talk about the situation in Houston, certainly with all of the officer involved shootings. And so it was just a couple of days just before the George Floyd. So we have been engaged with them because we know that we're going to have complete police reform. And actually today, that's one of the things that I am doing. I, along with some of my colleagues, we are drafting a letter, first of all, to the community to let them know what we are doing, and also recommendations to the mayor and police department. Now, we have what is called a public safety committee, and that committee actually meets, I believe it's June 26th at 10 a.m. And what we do, we talk about the things that are going on regarding the need for police reform. All of our meetings are included with public comment. And so certainly that would be a great opportunity for people to come out and express how they feel we should address some of these issues. Because I'm a person, I don't believe I'm always the smartest one in the room. And so I embrace other ideas from other people, particularly young people, because I really appreciate their engagement. But certainly voting is so very important. And I hear so many people, oh, it doesn't matter. But we know that there have been races that have been decided with only a few votes. And so I don't mean that you blanketly have to go out and support just a party, even though personally I am a Democrat. But certainly we need to go out and engage in the voting process. And also we need to engage in the census. The census is so very important at this time. We only get this opportunity every 10 years. And the census provides us money to be able to do some of the things that we need to do locally. And also what some people don't know is census data can track discrimination. And so that's very important as well. And so, you know, we keep beating the drum saying, vote, 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 take the census and keep your mask and whatever. And that's all we can do is keep trying to move the message forward. But as council members, I want everyone to know that we are not asleep at the wheel. We recognize what is going on. Some of us have had some personal experiences, but certainly I want everyone to know that we are engaged. We appreciate the feedback, and we're going to move forward with trying to get some real substantive police reform that actually has teeth. And so I thank you for this opportunity to kind of give that overview, and I'll be available here for any comments and questions.
Thank you, Dr. Carolyn Shabazz, Evan Shabazz. We really appreciate those comments. So we have we have another council member, Councilman Bashir Jones, Ward 7, Cleveland, Ohio. So I would, Councilman Bashir Jones, could you, if I'm a young person and I'm listening to Dr. Shabazz and I am fired up, right? I had many young people, when they found out I went down to the march, they were texting me, calling me, asking me, what should we do next, right? So as a council member that I know, particularly, I know you, I've known you for a while, and we know that you had a grassroots campaign and you connected with many of the people in the streets. If I'm trying to organize something locally to support our government officials, those that we have elected, and I have some skills. I can put together a small team. What would be something that could be that you would call one of the most effective things that I could do to help organize a group of people to contribute using, as our leader, Imam Warthaddin Muhammad, using the system, right? Utilizing the laws that are in place, the policies that are in place to our advantage as American citizens.
Alhamdulillah. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.
First of all, brother, you look good, brother. I gotta say it. I gotta say what everybody's thinking. You look beautiful, brother.
Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah.
MashaAllah.
We love Allah. We have to show gratefulness to His creation and be open and willing to complement each other. And we have to get into the habit of that, especially as Black men. You know, it's interesting that you asked that question. I had a young brother. He's 22 years old. So I just led a big march here in Cleveland. He's 22, and he said, "I'm so frustrated, man. I'm tired, man. I'm just tired, you know." And I'm like, "Brother, you are in the first minute of the first quarter, brother. You can't be tired. You just got started, man. You just got started." A lot of young people, you know, and I'm 35, man, so I'm still young in comparison to many, but for my youngins, man, my younger ones, you know, you have to be careful, man, because the sad part about it, unfortunately, America has a 400-year head start on the implementation of structural racism. So unfortunately, there's going to be another murder, unfortunately, man, by another name. So what I did with the young guy, I said, "Listen, I want you to meet me tomorrow. Meet me tomorrow," because he's fired up. And he met me. And we were out in the streets handing grocery bags to the community. And I said, "Brother, how do you feel now? How you feel?" He said, "I feel refreshed." I said, "Good. This is the trench work. This is the long-term work. You can't get caught up in and so emotional about what's happening, but I understand your pain. I do. But if you stay there, not only will you want to destroy buildings, but more importantly, you will be destroyed with hopelessness that tomorrow won't be no better." And you know, one young person said, "Well, we just don't like the way that the old people do it." I said, "But if you keep doing it the way that you're doing it, you may not get a chance to be old." So when you have a different understanding as you grow, you realize what you did then may not work now. And as an activist, man, you know, being a councilman, now my activism has transitioned. So for the young people, it's like, yo, you know, you have to be consistent. It's the consistent things, right? A consistent drip can drill a hole in the mountain. Just be consistent. It could be small. You know what I'm saying? Like you focused on changing DC, but you got trash in front of your house, man. Like pick up the trash, man. Your little cousin need help reading, right? Your mother need assistance. The elders on your block need to feel wanted and appreciated, right? So there's things that you can always do to leave an impact on this world. And that's the message that we have to give to young people because we want you to get a chance to make it till you see old. You know what I'm saying? So if you going and doing things that's the antithesis of that, then you won't get a chance because you're going to end up shot. You're going to end up killed. You're going to end up in jail. You're going to end up, and listen, and all these things are a part of an activist life, but not to the extent of, you know, making these decisions that won't allow you to see your future. You know, here in Cleveland, what we've done, alhamdulillah, is we recently just passed legislation declaring racism a public health crisis. A public health crisis. So now the city of Cleveland has to put money and put groups together to figure out how to rectify the impact that racism has had on Black and brown people here in Cleveland, Ohio. As I was doing a press conference the other day, as I told the reporter who asked, "Well, how much is going to cost?" I said, "Well, listen, with all due respect, sir, America can never pay back Black people. There is no amount of money. All we're asking is that you stop going further in debt because that's what's happening. You're going further in debt, but you're talking about trillions upon trillions upon trillions of dollars of not just 400 years of free labor, but also a systematic approach to remind you that the white man is God and that the Black man is the devil." So we have to understand that, man. And for my young people, and including myself and others and the elders, they got it. One of the elders told me in my closing, she said, "Run your leg of the race. This is your leg of the race. And there's going to always, each generation going to have its own struggle. And as the Imam Rashad talked earlier, it just was powerful for me that, you know, Noah didn't just represent like a physical structure boat, but also a spiritual one. Like that, I never even thought about that before, because that's how it feels sometimes. I mean, Noah was preaching for, you know what I'm saying, for a long time. And still at the end of the day, he still only had a couple people on the boat, you know? So imagine what we got, man, for 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. I mean, you know what I'm saying? So, but the flood is here though. The flood is here. And the question is, do you think that you're going to be safe on that high mountain, or are you going to be going the right direction, man, and following those who are spiritually connected? So it's all spirit. I close with that, brother Imam. It's all spirit. It's all spirit. It's all spirit. And as long as your spirit is strong, and if you want your spirit to become stronger during those times where you feel weak, during those times where you're tired, as we all are, right? Sometimes I put on Spreaker and I listen to Imam Rashad and Imam Suleiman, and I listen to you all across the country. You know what I'm saying? We Buy Black, inspiring. I listen to all these different people, and it inspires me to keep going. You got to find something that inspires you, that feeds you when you want to give up. Because without a doubt, there's moments when you want to give up. Inshallah.
Inshallah, alhamdulillah. So we have questions coming in. We're going to get through every panelist, and inshallah, we'll start to jump into the questions that you have. So next up, now remember, we are addressing injustice against African Americans in the U.S. And we're framing this discussion around establishing ourselves through religion and education, through government, through business and culture. So we have our brother, Sharif Abdul Malik. He's the founder and CEO of WeBuyBlack.com and also Soul Food Markets and many other efforts. So we want to bring him in. And he's doing one of our young brothers who is doing some amazing things. What we'd like to do is I want you to address what role does African-American businesses, entrepreneurs, and consumers play in changing the current system that oppresses African Americans?
Okay. Assalamu alaikum. Can y'all hear me? Well, I can see you.
Wa alaikum assalam. Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, let me first thank you all for bringing me on to the program. I had to step off for a second and try to get cleaned up a bit. So look, I understand the question. And there's what we've seen even in during the last few months, you know, when COVID-19 really started to affect you know, the world, and definitely affected our community disproportionately. One thing that we notice is that that our community is void of good leadership, and businesses have appeared on the scene as the leader for our community, as resourceful people. You know, when the community need face masks, the business leaders were providing face masks. When they needed hand sanitizer, they were providing hand sanitizer. When they needed jobs, because whatever they were working at, it fired them, and they were providing those jobs, and providing food and resources, et cetera. So we've seen businesses in our community, which, you know, Black-owned businesses make up, well, I would say that they're the second largest hiring agent outside of the government for the Black community. And Black-owned businesses have a much higher, you know, ratio of hiring their own people, even compared to, you know, the Chinese, compared to whites, compared to Jews, et cetera. African Americans, if we establish a business, then we're going to hire our own people. So although you could look at the Jewish community and say, okay, the dollar stays in the community for 17 days, the white community stays in there for X amount of days. We heard these statistics. What we want to also hear is that for Black people, we have a much higher chance of hiring our own people than a Jew will hire his own people. then a white person may hire their own people. In fact, when we go to their businesses, we see our people working anyway. So they have a much higher chance of hiring our own people, right? So even when you go into a lot of Asian restaurants, you see a lot of Hispanic brothers and sisters, or you may even find our people working behind it. But when you go to the African-American restaurant, you find our people there working. So Black people, African-American people, we have certain things, we have certain traits within us that really positions us for leadership within our own community. And if you look at, what's happening today in the time that we're in, it's essential for business leaders, to come together and to really plan not just for the time, but also for what is to come. As Bashir stated, that this is what we see right here is temporary. These times they come and go, but sometimes when they are present, it feels as if it's, as if it's going to last forever. There is going to be another one of us murdered, right? There is going to be another one of us murdered. It is going to be caught on camera again, and the world will protest again. Domino effect. You look at the protests, look at protests from the 1960s, look at protests that are happening today. It's growing, right? The world is learning about our issues. The world is studying our issues. You now have, when we're in the time of, where you could just take your cell phone and of course not just capture murder, but I watched a video earlier today where a young sister, this was a young white sister. She was recording her parents, say things that were very racist and very offensive to the African-American community and really to the world. And she fought them, right? She spoke out against them. She fought them and spoke out against them. And, this is the time that we're living in, where the world is really, or the system that has been established for this world is really collapsing. And what's most important for us as individuals is really, for right now, is to work on purifying ourselves. And I stress this a lot, because with purity, it gives you strength. And purifying not just ourselves, but purifying our business as well. There's a lot of businesses who may not be doing this in the right fashion or for the right reasons, but you'll notice that they're starting to say things like, we support Black-owned businesses, or we support the Black community. In fact, Amazon, which is a mega business, right? And the head of Amazon is the most, he's the richest man in the world right now. You go on Amazon right now, you just go on Amazon.com, you'll notice that they got Black Lives Matter, Amazon stands with the Black community, right? So really what we see happening right now is the world is bearing witness to what has happened to our people. And we as a community have to get together, we have to strategize, we have to get together much more often than this, especially not in times like when things happen like this. It's too late. It's too late to plot and plan right now. We got plot and plan. We should have been plotting and planning. We should be on a call every day, like birds in the morning, chirping and empowering each other every morning, even if it's for 10, 15 minutes, and helping each other, give each other guidance. But we definitely don't want to get to a situation, and this is what we're finding is poor planning, when we get to a situation in which our community needs us most, and we don't have a plan or anything in place, or anything to really call them to. So I say that we should definitely allow for this time to be an opportunity for us to learn from this, and to not get caught up in everything that's happening right now, but to learn from this, to properly plan for this, because all of this, essentially all of what we see, this whole world we will be inheritors of this whole world, that we don't have to fight for it. We don't have to, it's going to happen, that we're going to be inheritors of this world, and our responsibility and our test is how will we lead? How will we lead? So purifying ourselves, purifying our families, purifying our businesses, is going to be extremely important. And that's what zakat is. That's why we give zakat. It's a form of purification. We have to have these models established in our business. We should give taxes. We believe in giving taxes, but we don't believe in giving taxes and giving our money over to people who are going to actually take that money and then come back and oppress us. That doesn't make any sense. So businesses should be willing to give taxes. They should be willing to give to have a portion set aside in the money and the funds that they give that the government or those responsible for taking those funds. We should see change in our communities, right? We should see those things. And if not, then it would be necessary to step in and to establish our own tax to ensure that our community is benefiting, et cetera. So, yeah, so
Thank you, Sharif. Yes, sir. Thank you, Sharif. So next up, inshallah, addressing culture, we have our sister Namat Bilal. I just wanted to read a quote from Imam Warathuddin Muhammad. He says, in this battlefield in the hood where the children whose ancestors were sold on slave blocks, now we, their children, are defeated by the culture we give into. Sensationalism and consumerism enslave the human spirit. Traditional human pride suffers a sellout to hood blocks. We have come from slave blocks to hood blocks. I want to, Namat, she's a businesswoman, and I've traveled with her, Muslim leaders on a delegation, a great thinker, as well as an artist, a singer. So I would like, if Namat, if you could address how do we address in relation to culture right now, how do we form immediate solutions that will help us detoxify, right, this culture, right, this toxic culture that we live. Some say the culture of death that may contribute to the injustices that we see happening.
Okay, well, assalamu alaikum. Thank you for having me. Well, there are a number of things that are on my mind, and I know I have a short amount of time. Okay, so the first thing is that when we say culture, business, education, and government, all of these things equal community life, right? These are all portions, these are 4 portions that equal community life. So really the bird is community life, because that's the thing that's going to get us off the ground. So if we can become successful in just one of these areas, all the other areas will come. You can't have government without education, business, and culture. Business has a culture. You know what I mean? That's one thing that we need to, that's encouraging and it's inspiring, because that means if we can get one thing absolutely straight, right, specific, and done, Allah will bless us with these other things. The other thing is that culture is a manifestation. When, you know, the way that we look at culture, we'll say art, music. You know, that is how a lot of us define culture. But art and music is a manifestation of your experiences. And so as a manifestation, I would say, of your experiences and your circumstances. So as an artist in our community, and I'm sure I can speak on behalf of the artists in our community, you know, we have had a very difficult time trying to figure out where we fit into the community. And, you know, everything from, you know, being in music studios and, you know, having opportunities, having record deals, major record deals, opportunities, but having to turn them down, or having to try to figure out, how can I say this without saying this, you know, so that I can keep my faith. But one of the things that I realized, and hopefully this will inspire other musicians and artists, is that if you're singing, if your music is based on what is in the Quran, and you're putting out good, clean music, and people are not receiving it, right? And people are not receiving it. And there are options that they have. They have options of listening to filthy music, whatever kind of music they want to. They can even listen to other religious music, like gospel music. But if they're choosing secular music or something else, maybe that's because they identify with that more than they identify with what God might be saying. So I just want you as an artist to take that, and that should mean keep going, you know, keep keep making your good music, because even though it may not reflect the lives that people live today, maybe if they keep listening to it, and as things change and their lives start to reflect that reality and that manifestation, then that's what they'll want to hear. So don't get discouraged if people aren't buying your music, if people aren't supporting you. All of these thoughts and conversations that we've had as artists, don't leave, don't conform, because it's easy to do that. You feel accepted out there. People are purchasing things, buying things, telling you, hey, you're doing an excellent job and we're going to actually pay you. And then you come into our community, we don't have money like that. We don't have establishment. So back to the situation with Noah's Ark, one of the things I thought about is that, this flood has reached the mountains, right? So we're talking about establishments and not having establishments. This flood has reached the mountaintops. So we can't take to the mountains. You saw what happened when Noah's son took to the mountain. The mountains, these big establishments that stabilize the land. The water is all the way at the mountaintop. So if they're having the same issues in the mountain that we're having, then how do you save yourself? So there's such thing as Noah's Ark. What is this? These are the questions I was asking while studying this particular surah on Noah's Ark. There's an establishment that sits above the water. So how is that possible, and what does that mean metaphorically? So if the water, this flood that we're experiencing, individualism, racism, lack of trust with one another. I mean, it's just so many things. In order to have an establishment that sits above the water, you'd have to incorporate those things into your business structure, right? So we've seen during this time businesses that are thriving. And we'd have to ask ourselves, well, how is that? Where the rest of the world is drowning in this flood, there are establishments sitting up on the water, right? So one thing is for sure, you could say Uber, for example. Now, Uber, this idea of individualism that we have, where we're not really inclined to follow leadership anymore. A lot of us don't want to actually have to work for someone. They've incorporated that into their business plan. Not stopping us from thinking and including our own talents. Let's say with Uber, I'm going to use them as an example. Sure, you can start your own business and you can do whatever you want with your vehicle and market and get customers and all of that. But they're pretty much saying, hey, look, we can get you the customers. We have this online establishment that will organize for you, but you can use your vehicle, decorate your vehicle, put what you want in your vehicle, come to work when you want to, stay home with your kids if you want to, take off if you get sick. And you can have your earning potential, work as many hours as you want to, right? Do you deal with racism? No, it's just you and your vehicle, right? So I'm a business owner as well. And between all of my contractors, stylists, and otherwise, I have about maybe 18 people that I pay, right? And that's everybody, okay? So the way my business is set up is, and I'm giving you this example because I think this is a great example for our community. Those of us who are successful, you bring other people, contractors in underneath of you, and you show them how to do business and you bring them customers, right? But as a contractor, they learn how to establish their own selves. So therefore they become grateful and they have to be responsible because it's up to them, right? So if, those of us who maybe have established family life and stuff like that, if you can do that in this climate, then you can run an entire business. But a lot of us are single. A lot of us haven't had the opportunity to build anything. But, having some sort of business as a contractor, whether it's a second job or being self-employed, it allows you to build a community life. That's what a business is. It's an establishment. But if you want a successful business right now, you have to incorporate all of these sensitivities that are just flooding away our opportunities. You would have to be able to do that. So make a checklist of what they are. What is our problem, right? We have a problem with authority. Okay, then you be the authority. I'll show you what to do. I'll put some money behind this. I'll take my little cut. I'll give you your fair cut. But we're working together, right? With our issues. Maybe I don't want to work for you. You know what I mean? Maybe there's jealousy, all these things that we have. But those of us in this community that have established themselves, a good model is to take those people and their businesses, show them what to do, take a cut, a small cut, only what you need to take, market for them, and get them customers. It has to be a circle for us because we're not rich. You have to get them customers. You know, so I have more to say, but I don't want to take up too much more time.
Thank you. Thank you, Sister Namat. We really appreciate you. So just to the listening audience, please, if you're listening on Facebook, please type your questions, serious questions. This is a serious time, serious questions that you have. We have an esteemed panel of who have different expertise and proficiency. So type your questions into the comments in Facebook. If you're on YouTube, type your questions there. If you're on the phone, type your questions to our WhatsApp group. So we're going to move on to Bayina and Hanif Khalil of Camp Khalil, which they have, their organization has served youth consistently over the past 15 years. So I have a question. We have a question for you all. What is the best strategy if I'm a parent, if I'm a mentor, if I am an imam or teacher and leader in the community of some sort? What's the best strategy, and what is the important what's the best strategy of having the talk or this discussion with our youth? And then two, what are the important discussions that we should be having with the youth related to this topic?
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.
We want to thank Master Worthy Muhammad and thank you, Abdullah, for the opportunity to address our community during this time. We want to say, so in terms of education, in terms of answering your question, if you're a leader, if you're a parent, can you all hear me? I said something to say. Can you all hear me?
Okay, we can hear you better when you speak like that. If you can speak up just a little bit.
All right. So once again, thank you all for inviting us to be on the panel. We are so honored and grateful to be in the company of individuals who have been working tirelessly their entire lives. For being in the company of individuals who, prior to our current conditions that are being brought to our attention, have been doing the work on a daily, consistent basis, as Bashir said. And we are honored to be here to address our audience. And in terms of the question that you asked, what can parents, clergymen, leaders be doing? And I would say be proactive. You know, as a let's say as a parent, I don't wait until my child fails a class, right, to ask them how they're doing in school. I take an active and proactive approach to communicate with my child, model for my child regularly on a daily basis what excellence looks like, right? I don't move in the reactive, I operate in the proactive. So one of the things that I have made my life's work is recognizing that all that I am, all that my husband is, all that we all are, is a collection of our experiences, as Namat mentioned, and our environment, which she also mentioned. And so what we need to know is that we are all that we need. We have all that we need. Allah has provided it to us as His creation, and He has stated in the Quran unequivocally that He will raise us who raise Him. And so we're constantly working to ensure that our life is an example of Allah's intention for us, Allah's goal for us. So in education, it is about educing. That is the root of the word. It's about pulling out what's already there. So as an educator, I don't consider myself a quote unquote teacher, right? Imam Qasim Ahmed, may Allah have mercy on him, stated that our intentions as educators and leaders is to inspire, to light a match. We're not over pouring of ourselves into someone else exclusively, right? We are giving of ourselves, but we see education as lighting a match, educing, pulling something out. So in my life's work and working with our young people, there are things that we represent consciously and subconsciously. So self-love, recognizing that whatever I have is so valuable that I'm willing to share it, and I'm focused primarily on sharing it with the people that are closest to me. My family that I live with, my biological family, my community that I interact with on a regular basis. It's knowing that we are our own resource and not feeling the need to operate under the gaze of an external ruler, external God, or external superior, right? Recognizing that our only superior is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that everything we do, everything we are is a reflection of Him, and that it is our duty to exude, right, to radiate Him through the love and the work that we do for our family and for our community. So in terms of the role that leaders and educators play, is to recognize that the work that you do is on a consistent, everyday basis. As they say, your children do as you do, not as you say, right? They do as you do. And so constantly reminding yourself that you are an example through your actions and representing that love of Allah and having that exude and pulling from them what they already have within themselves, and showing them how to do that on this consistent basis.
First and foremost, A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajeem, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. We'd like to thank Masjid Orders-ud-Din Muhammad and the organizers for having this important panel discussion regarding the social unrest that we're all facing as human beings on this earth. And I'd like to thank also Imam Abdullah Rashid for moderating this discussion. And I'm thankful also to be on this esteemed panel. So my wife talked about education and what we are to do with our young people. And I want to touch on culture, because we've been asked to address culture and education. And I want us to draw back to where we were just a few short years ago in the scheme of life. And when I say a few short years ago, I'm talking about since the 1930s and the establishment of the Nation of Islam. The Nation of Islam used to be the culture. The Nation of Islam used to be the standard and the soul for African Americans in the African American community. And they were founded upon a principle of moral dignity, moral excellence, and moral nobility. And the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, may Allah be pleased with him, his major thing was to clean the soul, clean the mind, and to clean the body of the African American community. And so when we go back to that origin, that should be the foundation for all of the four birds that we're looking at. And I think that morality and moral excellence is what's missing from the conversation. And so when we think about the totality of community life, morality is the connective tissue, if you will, to all of the other four areas. And I wanted to start with moral excellence for this particular purpose. When we think about culture, our culture should represent moral excellence. It should represent morality, and it should represent excellence. And when we get back to that particular foundation, then we have the spirit, then we have the catalyst, then we have the fire, then we have the energy where we can direct our young people. Our young people are bombarded by a very, very influential culture. And it pulls away from the fabric of us being moral creatures, to being morally upright people. And it rips apart the excellent nature of the human being. So first and foremost, we have to get back to moral excellence. We have to get back to our nobility. We have to get back to that energy that allows us to live up to the Muslim excellence. And secondly, when we think about what we can do for our young people, we have to inspire from them this latent potential that Baden was talking about, as far as educing from them. All of our young people have latent potential. And now they're looking and they're searching for leadership. They're searching for our leaders. They're searching for our parents to be that connective voice in order to inspire them to move out to promote moral and cultural excellence. And I think one of the things that we can do, all of us, including our young people, what we can do is utilize the tools and the resources that we have to promote moral and cultural excellence. One of the things that we can do, we have smartphones, we have tablets, we have all of these particular devices. One of the things that we can very simply do is just promote moral excellence, cultural expression whether it's in business, government, and all of those different things, by just really recording the good things that we see in society. If we record the good things that we're seeing in society and we post those in our Facebook posts, that's something that we can very simply do to promote and establish more excellence. And again, I want to remind us again of where we came from, where Imam Muhammad has brought us to, and where we have on our watch, as many of us have mentioned, the baton is in our hands right now. So we have to take up the responsibility to promote moral excellence, cultural excellence in a very, very basic and simplistic way, but in a way that can also garner and pull us back to this cultural sensitivity that we have. And the last thing I will say is this, you know, when we think about hip hop and the elements of hip hop and where hip hop started, all of the early rappers and the early artists, they were influenced by Islam in one way or another. So you look at the 5 Percenters, you look at James Brown, who was inspired by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad to talk about and sing about I'm Black and I'm proud. So we have to begin to be that voice again that promotes moral excellence in our culture.
And one of the things that we wanted to leave before we leave is about engagement. So there was a question from one of our panelists about how do we get our youth engaged?
So thank you. We're gathering the questions. So I'm gonna start directing them to the presenters. So thank you so much, Imam Hanif and Bayina, long time serving the youth in our community consistently. So we want to start our question and answer. So if you have a question, please drop a comment. So firstly, one of the questions is going to be directed at Councilman Bashir, and then I'll have one directed to Councilwoman Carolyn Evans Shabazz. So Councilman Bashir, there's a question of what specific examples can we provide to show that political engagement or action can actually bring about change? A lot of the people are frustrated and fed up and don't believe that political engagement will actually bring about change. What specific examples or models that you can bring forth to address that question?
Thank you, Imam. Thank you. Well, Donald Trump is a representation that voting matters. So that's number one. The fact that Donald Trump is in office, people have died as a result of him being in office. But to take you to a local level, I ran for office. I ran 4 years back, lost by 600 votes, ran again and won by 13 votes. So you're talking about stress. That's serious. And I can take you around my community and show you things that would not be there if I wasn't there. I can show you brand new parks that we have created. I can show you artwork that we have. Our community has become an open air art museum. I can take you to people who have jobs. When I first got into office, my mom, some of you knew her. Her name was Imani. She passed away from breast cancer 10 years back. The first thing I did was created the Imani Food Distribution Center that feeds thousands of people every single month. So what I want for people to understand is that whether you like it or not, and I'm sure Dr. Shabazz will concur, that politics has an impact on your everyday life. What schools get funded, what roads get completed, what policies are pushed, so the idea of just, I won't get involved with politics as if it won't affect you, it will affect you. And not voting, see, it's not just about voting. It's also about holding people accountable. So you have judges that are in place, man. I was telling one of my guys, I said, oh, you understand politics well. You never voted, but you understand it well. Because when you have to go in front of that judge, you asking me for a recommendation letter. So politics has an impact then. So you have to stay engaged. And I think that's the key. Please, man, for everybody out there, you can follow me at Bashir J, BASHEERJ on Instagram, and you can see the work that we're doing. You can see it live and live in color. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen.
Alhamdulillah. Thank you, Bashir, Councilman Bashir. So Dr. Evans Shabazz, Councilwoman, we have a question about, in specific, how can we use laws and policies to bring about change? So I'm here in Houston with you as well. There's some people who are in the chat. They're asking about how do we consolidate our people into communities where we can control the local and state policies based on our involvement. What's that process look like, and what are some things that we can get involved in, as soon as the forthcoming weeks?
Okay, I think I alluded to it before. We do operate in a community, in a committee system. And we are looking at some substantive changes right now regarding police reform. And you can certainly engage yourself in that process. And we've asked for some things so that community can even be more engaged, especially in light of shootings and incidents of that I believe needs to be viewed, or the public should be able to weigh in on whether some of these shootings are justified. And so those are some of the policy changes that we are trying to implement. But certainly, as Councilman Bashir spoke, it's very important to recognize, and I have to be honest, I came out of an educational arena, and you get so bogged down in what you do every day that you don't really realize the impact of politics. And politics does impact everything. And so that's why it's very important to not only vote, as he said, but you have to hold your elected officials accountable. And since I have this brief little moment, I do have to take issue with one comment that said that we are void of good leadership. And that I kind of take issue with that, because first and foremost, I don't consider myself to be the greatest leader, but I am accountable and I am present. And I am active. And, when he spoke of the PPEs and all of that, I and so many elected officials have really, really been on the forefront with trying to provide these items. And some of the businesses who he gave accolades to, which I am on board fully, sometimes got some of those materials from elected officials. So, I think that one thing we have to do is stop ostracizing elected officials and putting them all in a bucket and determining that no one is a good leader, because that certainly is not true. Now, certainly I'm mindful that there are those that are not good leaders, but then that's when that voting and accountability process comes in mind that the public can directly affect. And so I want to say that, of course, even the census piece, as I keep saying, is very, very important, because it can provide accountability, it can provide funding. And you hear a lot of times, we need streets, we need police, we need this, we need that. But without funds, we're limited. And certainly, that this COVID crisis has taken a great impact. We're right now in budget season, making some tight restrictions on what we are able to do. So I just need people to know that politics is important, but accountability is important. I'm not saying that you continue to vote for the same people. Certainly, some are still effective, and some are just riding along on their name recognition. And so, we have to become educated voters, not just people that go and vote and pull a lever or whatever. We don't pull levers anymore, but you know what I mean. But push a button and just decide, oh, I'm just going to continue with the same old. So anyway, just be mindful that politics affects everything. I mean, from the time you open your eyes in the morning, there are so many things that are impacted by politics. So you certainly owe it to yourself to be engaged or to be knowledgeable. And I'm going to say this, I come from an educational arena, and say for instance, our school boards, our local school boards, they are elected officials. And so certainly when issues come up, you can't expect the same people to always be the face of issues. And you know, the body count is very important. You may not be the speaker, but you need to be present to just maybe wave your hands to show that you do support the speaker. Because at the end of the day, if you don't show that you are engaged and that, you know, the speakers have people behind them, then you won't be heard, unfortunately, by some elected officials. So certainly you have a responsibility. We are all very busy. We're all working. You know, some of us are working 2 and 3 jobs. And of course, I want to address that at some point because I did have a engagement that was canceled that was going to help people to be able to get better jobs so that we don't have to work 2 and 3 jobs, because engagement with our children in the school setting is one of the most common denominators of how our children are successful. So that point, you know, we can't always say we're busy. We can't always leave it to someone else. And we have to be engaged. We can't sit on the sidelines and complain all the time about what is good and what is not. And then we have technology that will allow you to engage as well as be able to let your elected officials know where you stand on certain issues. That's so very important. And so, you know, accountability and certainly politics and being mindful of how important politics and what role politics plays in your daily life is going to be key.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. I agree with you with what you've said, and especially accountability and self-responsibility. So the leaders are elected, but when they're, as you mentioned, there are calls for the community to come out and support. We need to be there. We need to be present. We need to be active. So you mentioned education. So I'm going to go to either Imam Rashad or Hanif and Bayina. And this is about education. And then we'll move on to business. So what are some ways that we can educate effectively the youth around community engagement and community involvement? You know, how do we intrigue them? How do we touch them? Like it was mentioned, the Nation of Islam, how the Nation of Islam was the culture. Many young people, a lot of the leaders, our brother Malcolm X, and a lot of the leaders that have educated us and passed on, they were in their 20s leaders of temples, in their 20s leaders in the movement. So how do we educate our youth to be engaged in the community, becoming professionals, going and get degrees, but also coming back to the community and being engaged? And how do we help them organize for the movement, inshallah?
Imam Rashad, you can go first, and then we'll go after you.
Okay. Bismillah. I'm gonna, because I know that time is running down. I want to kind of answer this question while addressing something else, because there were a lot of wonderful points that were brought up. I mean, it's a lot of things that, and I know this is not the forum to hit on everything. What I think about education is, you know, the most important education in life is not really what we receive in a classroom. And I think that that's a cultural thing that a lot of other groups have, that I don't see it, at least from my experience, that the African American people have. You know, we come from a tradition where we were taught to better our lives. We had to go to school, go to college, etc. And all of that is really good. But when we look at successful groups, ethnic groups, they have a sort of a traditional life that's passed down to them, that gives them their real strength as a people. That education is so potent. Like in school, you don't learn how to be a husband. You don't learn how to maintain a family. Those are things that represent the essence of life, and they hold a people together. So even when people are not able to make strides in a society such as America, where you need a certain degree of education to do things and have a nice income, they're still able to survive and eventually progress. And I think that African Americans, we really need to double down on education in that context. And I'm saying that to say this: there was a point that Sharif made, Councilman Bashir made, Dr. Shabbat. I mean, it all comes together. I really do think that what I would like to see for our community, and I'm getting to the answer. Forgive me for addressing it this way, but I would like to see us in our local communities, particularly with the men, meet on a monthly basis, all of the men, and we bring our sons with us. When they're 7, old enough to sit still, rather, they should come with us. And we discuss community concerns, small and great. If the school needs $10,000, brothers, we need to come up with a plan now. If our sisters are single, if this sister doesn't have a house, this brother came out with a new product, there's a new type of true detergent. Like, we come up as a group of men with serious action plan to address that. And not only that, like here, our imam is Imam Suleiman. There in Houston, the imam is Imam Wazir. It would be so potent if let's say if everybody was doing this meeting, if this becomes just the way we do in our community. Brothers in Cleveland, brothers in DC, and then Imam Suleiman calls Imam Wazir and say, look, this is the problem. We said we're gonna do this regarding true detergent. I'm just using true because that's Bain, you sell true. We're gonna get our true from Bain. Because we're gonna produce funds that's gonna support Camp Khalil. You know what I'm saying? If we thought like that, and then Imam Wazir calls the Imam in DC, and he calls the Imam in Cleveland, and we're all on the same page as men. I don't think that's difficult. And I think that when our sons grow up in an environment like that, we teach them like that, I think that's how we keep them. They're going to feel like they're a part of something that's so big, that's so strong and dynamic. And I think that was the real pull of the nation. Those brothers who talk about the Nation of Islam, they always recount the brotherhood. They don't talk about the theology so much. They don't talk about the myth so much. They talk about the brotherhood and the connectedness between one another. And that's what I want to focus on in terms of education. That's so important. That cannot be swept under the rug as if it's secondary. I think that's primary. Whereas the men form, and it becomes a part of our culture, where our sons begin to do it, and it's just natural. It's not something we have to schedule. And our sons and grandsons do it. Hey, the African American Muslim men, they meet on the first Wednesday of every month to discuss how they're going to plan out the next 3 months, and all their leaders coordinate with all other imams in the other parts of the country. That's so simple, but it's so profound and powerful. I think things like that is how we keep our young people.
Yes, sir. Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. That's right. Imam Hanif.
So I think, yeah, if I may add anything, it's really, I think we need to do a better job in showing our young people how to engage the creation. Creation supported logic, those type of themes that Imam Muhammad has left us. I think our young people really engage the world from a material aspect through the lens of other people, and they miss the aspect of creating, getting back to the creator. And that will really turn on and light a fire upon them of self-love, because you can identify yourself through that particular process. So self-love, and then being able to look at education from the lens of studying the creation, looking at the creation, how can we evolve the creation, and then the relationship between the human mind and the creation, and how that evolves both the human life and also evolves the creation.
Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, when he was spreading the message of al-Islam, Prophet Muhammad ﷺ did not focus on his enemies. He did not focus on those who were in opposition to his message. He focused on spreading the message of Islam, and he focused on doing it through his actions. He wasn't about rhetoric. He wasn't about fancy speeches, right? He wasn't about how crisp his thobe was. He was about action. And he used his life and the actions that he made to galvanize people and model for them what the best life could look for, what the best life could look like. So when we're thinking about engaging our youth and we're thinking about giving them the tools, when you want to address injustice, don't address injustice with a child who's 5, 6, or 7. Instead, you teach them self-love. You show them how important they are. You show them how they're loved by Allah, how they're loved by you, and the community shows them love. And that is how they will combat injustice, because they won't allow themselves to be fed by the greater society. They won't be looking for their school teacher exclusively to teach them. They won't be looking for the television to tell them who they are. They will not be looking at the television to strike fear into them, make them afraid to run, make them afraid to speak truth, right? Make them afraid of the police. They won't have that fear of anything other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And their focus and their drive will be, how can I love Allah enough to love myself, to be morally upright, and to know that the truth doesn't come from outside sources. The truth is the truth. The Quran is the truth. And the way you learn that truth is through examples, as Imam Rashad said, seeing the brothers in your community coming together to improve community life. So I would say, in terms of engaging our youth, in terms of empowering them for in the community, it starts with family, making sure that the individuals are in accordance with what Allah wanted. They're modeling the best Islamic life. And then when those children step out into the world, they'll automatically have the fuel, the energy, the passion they need to tackle anything that comes their way. When there's no enemy within, the enemy outside can't hurt you.
Alhamdulillah, thank you so much. We're cutting short on time. This has been a wonderful discussion. We're going to move on to our brother Sharif Abdul Malik. So someone asks, why is it necessary, or can you talk about the necessity for us to control the entire supply chain for our products in order to remove those who hate us and our enemies from it? And how do we, so that would, and their question is, that would be, and if you talk about the necessity, would that help us turn the tides and make us independent of them by us removing them from the supply chain or the vertical for our products that we use?
Yeah, you know, so I don't think that should be the goal. I think I understand why, you know, we could get there. You know, I could understand why we could get there. But I think that we have to be very careful with allowing, you know, evil and hate from others to have us to create plans that may put us in position to really do that to other people. The world is global. The world is global, right? And business is global. And there's resources here in America that aren't in China. There's resources in China that aren't here in America. There are resources in Africa that aren't in China, and resources in China aren't in Africa. So we should be finding ways in which we all, the whole world, could be working together, but not in a way in which we should to hurt each other or to oppress each other or to put each other out of business or to collapse someone else's economy or nation. And then at the same time, approaching, addressing the sentiment coming from our community, we should never be in a situation in which those that we would say have caused hurt, damage, and historically have oppressed our life, we should never be in a situation in which all of our affairs should be in their control. Our life should be in their control. Our livelihood should be in their control. That if that we should be able to go to those in our own community, those that represent, organizations or businesses that support our best life. We should be able to go to them and get the basic necessities of our life, our food, our clothing, our shelter. But anytime, we find ourselves in a situation in which, all of these things are situated in which they're in the hands of someone else, then that's not a good place to be in. And we understand that from Quran, that we should not allow for other people outside of ourselves to be the protector over our affairs. This also is it addresses our whole life. I was in a situation in which I wanted to really step away from one of the businesses that I was in. And one of the people that I had in mind, dynamic person that I had in mind, a dynamic business mind. They had a dynamic business mind. But when I looked into their life, sometimes people fill out the resume and you go and check out their Facebook afterwards. They doing that now. I went and checked out this person's life. It doesn't support what we're about. And, and I couldn't hand that over to that person. So really, but I understand though. I understand being in control. Being in control, we need to be in control. We need to be in control. We need to have farms in which we're growing our food. We need to have processing plants in which we're processing and these different food items. We need to be able to get this food over to distributors. We need to have large distributors across the United States. Not only that, we need to have not just the distributors, then also the retailers. So we need to have this whole, we need to have the whole pipeline lined up for our success. We need to have the whole lineup. And essentially that's what we're working on. That's what we're working on here in Atlanta. But obviously, our network is global. I had to turn the camera off and prostrate, just a second ago, because I had got a message that there's leaders in the world right now that are saying that a part of their plan should be to support what we're doing specifically. They're naming our efforts specifically, and this is what Imam Muhammad told us that we should expect. He told us that we should expect this, and in the Quran details it, that this is what you should expect. Any oppressed people who have been oppressed by the world, then you will be the natural inheritors of the land. You'll be the natural inheritors of the land. But in order for you to inherit the land, you have to remain pure, and you have to constantly seek guidance from God. You have to. And they would just throw it. They would just throw it at you. You know what I mean? They would just give it up. So alhamdulillah, we are in that position. We're in a position right now where we're building a fulfillment center here in Atlanta. We have 20,000 square feet. Tomorrow is actually our first day. And that's why, I was just coming from, on the call. So apologize for being a little late, but, we're establishing a fulfillment center here. So people here in Atlanta, very soon, they'll be able to say, okay, I want the laundry detergent of what Rashad just mentioned. I want laundry detergent. I want light bulbs. We have that in our community now. Trash bags, bed sheets, bath towels, toothbrushes, batteries, diapers, Abdullah, on and on and on and on. All of these products that we have in our community now. And then on top of that, we're working with Black farmers, a part of the other effort that we're working on, which is called Soulful Market, but these efforts they all work together. Nothing is isolated. Nothing is isolated or separate. But people be able to say, okay, I want halal meat. I want, my fruits, and I want my vegetables. They'll be able to say this very soon. And guess what? We right here in Atlanta, we will bag it up, all of that together, put it in the box, and drive it right to their door. This is all happening in real time. And for those that are not in Atlanta, outside of the non-perishables, they could order that and we'll deliver the same day. And we're working now on a method of being able to incorporate free shipping. So, alhamdulillah, Allah is blessing us. I'm excited. This is a beautiful time for the believer. It is not a downtime. I'm so boosted because what's happening to us that's causing us to feel down, this has been happening to us forever. It has been constantly happening to us. Nothing has changed. I mean, things are changing, but I'm saying that this is nothing new. That these things are happening, these things are always happening, but those of our foreparents that have not been able to witness what God is doing for us today, I just now said on Facebook, while I was on here, typed it up on Facebook. I said, I wish Imam Muhammad was here just to see what's going on. Like, it is a beautiful time. Alhamdulillah. So for the brother or sister that asked that question, yeah, we want to be in control, but we don't want to be in control whereas that we're choking other people from having a life and benefiting their families and their communities and their nation. We don't ever want to be in that type of control. But I think that the type of control we should be in is to be in control of our own life, number one, and that if we are ever given the responsibility to be in control of somebody else's life, then one, we should be morally upright and purified. Speaking of the Noah's Ark, we should be morally upright and purified, and then two, we should be a people that are constantly seeking guidance from God. And I believe that then we will be able to dictate and be able to say who gets what and what they should be able to receive. I think that that's us being over the storehouses. So Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. Thank you, Brother Sharif. We really appreciate you. So we're going to have one more question, and that question will be for our sister Namat Bilal, and then I'll give a closing as we're over time now. So Sister Namat, so are there any artists that you would point to, right? One, are there any artists that you would point us to? And then are there any platforms that we could join, or we could support or find that will allow us to listen to or purchase music from conscious artists? And then if you'd like to give any more comments about the outlets that exist for artists, or any more recommendations to the artists out there in respect to the topic.
Sure. Okay, so in terms of the artists, one thing is that I think in our community, we know who our artists are, and there are a lot of them. But they're not readily in your mind unless we're doing something, right? So there's a connection that needs to be made. So even with myself, so if I'm doing something and I put out a Facebook post, or I do something to let you know that that is what I'm doing, then you know I'm doing it. Then you can purchase a CD, or you can tune in, or you could see what I'm doing and be a part of it. Part of the discouragement that comes with not having the money or the backing to really get big in the community keeps you from doing as much, right? Because you're just like, okay, well, I don't even know if this is what people really want. You know what I mean? So, and I'm trying to give you the real of how the artists feel. You know what I mean? That's really how it is. You're not getting phone calls to perform. And if you are, you're traveling for free. You have to spend your own money. So then there's this thing that happens where you're kind of like, well, maybe I shouldn't take this so seriously. Maybe I should do it sometimes. And when I do it, I do it. When I don't, I don't. But I think for the artist, the thing that changed my mindset is, like I said before, once you realize that people are not necessarily living, when you're singing a song about how people may aspire to be, right? How they may aspire to be, that may not reach them like a song that talks about what they're in right now. So, that is why I say, maybe once we become accustomed to a upright way of life where we're actually living in the religion, like even in the Nation of Islam, you're talking about connecting the youth with coming back and wanting to be a part of it. The religion was their life. When that happens, then you're not going to be drawn to other things. You know what I'm saying? So that is the thing that needs to happen with us in order for us to begin to really appreciate our artists. That is what has to happen. And it is kind of discouraging as an artist because it's not happening quite right now. We're very distracted. We're very much struggling to be upright. We are struggling to be upright. People are separating. There's a lot going on right now. And so it is hard for an artist to really make a mark with all that is happening. But what I would say is, when you do see one of us put something out, then try to make an effort to be a part of it. I would like to encourage artists to do more. I started another Facebook page, Quran Inspired Music and Arts, to try to bring people, artists and musicians and poets in our community together into one place so people could find us. So that if you can go there and sign up, then maybe you'll get to see some of them. So inshallah, that helps.
Alhamdulillah. Thank you, Sister Namat. And I would like to, so we're going to close out. I'm going to make some closing remarks, and then we'll have our Imam come close us out with some remarks and a dua. But what we'd like to do is we'd like to thank all of the panelists who joined us for this very, very important discussion. The comments in Facebook are flooded with questions, more than we can answer. And this short time that we have together was not meant at all to be a total comprehensive discussion. We wanted to start the discussion off here locally in Houston and bring some of the best minds and those who have proficiencies in this area to inspire you all who are watching in your local communities to do the same. So what we're doing, what we're planning to do here in Houston is we are going to organize from the 4 areas: religion and education, business, government, and culture. We'll be targeting young people as leaders that we can support with our experience, support with leadership training, support with our money as well, to take on the task of organizing efforts, immediate efforts, short-term and long-term, but immediate, in the immediate time right here, while as it says in the Quran, it says when the earth starts to erupt and man says, what is wrong with her? Right? So this is what's happening right now. While these things are happening, these are signs from God, and we have to respond. So in response, we are marching, we are protesting, but that's not enough. So we are going to organize, inshallah, addressing the 4 areas. We'll target young people. We can get young people that we can back, who have energy, who have fire, who have the interest. We support them with our experience, the wise of us, and we connect them with leaders across the country, like you saw on this call during this discussion. But locally, what we're going to do is start locally, putting in some programs addressing the 4 areas immediately. So what we're going to do is in the comments section, we're going to share a form. The form will ask for your name, your email address, and what area you would like to contribute to. And what we're going to do is we're going to have a meeting here soon, within the next few weeks, if that at most, where we will bring you all. It will bring everybody who fills out the form together. We will break into these groups, and we'll start to form initiatives that will affect us here locally. And we advise you, wherever you are, if you'd like to do something, if you'd like to affect change, right, you can do the same. We're going to share this model as we develop it out. We'll be sharing what we'll be doing with everyone who's watching and other communities, as Imam Rashad mentioned. We here are working together. The leaders are working together, and a lot of you on the call are my friends, my brothers and sisters, and we're reaching across. But as Imam Rashad mentioned, we need to be meeting more often. So take what you learned on the call and act on it immediately. Organize those people that have the same interests, have the same motivations, and the same care about the community. Organize with them and meet with them and start to employ initiatives. You may say, I may not have many people, or we don't have a lot. Allah will bless you if you have whatever resources you have. If you have inadequate resources and you go, Allah will bless you with adequate resources. So just pick up wherever you are, reach out to myself, Imam Abdullah Rashid on Facebook, some of the others here that are on this discussion. You can reach out to us at Masjid Warathuddin Muhammad if you have questions that we want to, or that you would like us to address specifically to some of those on this panel. And we will try to help assist you as we are moving forward here locally. So fill out that form that'll be shared in the comments, the YouTube comments, and the Facebook comments. So thank you again to all of the panelists for taking time out of your busy schedule. We know you are working and been working tirelessly before this has happened, before this injustice has been highlighted. You've been working. We thank you, and thank you to those that are listening and that have proposed questions. We apologize if we weren't able to get to your question, but as you can see, this is a very comprehensive topic. So I will ask our Imam, Dr. Wazir Ali, to come and share anything that he would like to share with us to end out and close us out in dua, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We want to leave you as we came. We began with a quote from Life, the Final Battlefield by Imam Warathuddin Muhammad. I advise everyone to read that book and read those lectures because they put perspective on what we're dealing with right now. So Imam Muhammad left these words for us. He said, but before I read this, I want everybody to think on this and look at what's happening now and take heed to the advice or the guidance that Imam Muhammad gave us. He said, but the human being, if you degrade their worth as humans and put them in circumstances or situations that prevent them from having a sense of being human or a sense of well-being, it will trouble them inside. It will make them rebel against the situation you put them in. They will not accept it. رَبَّنَا آتِنَا فِي الدُّنْيَا حَسَنَةً وَفِي الْآخِرَةِ حَسَنَةً وَقِنَا عَذَابَ النَّارِ. Oh Allah, give us the good of this life and the good of the next life, and protect us from the punishment of our uncontrolled appetites. Thank everyone for attending today and participating. Peace be upon you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.